cave does not begin in darkness. It begins in a slow surrender of the familiar. At the entrance, daylight still touches stone, moss can still grow. Air still moves with the outside world, but a few meters farther in, color thins. Sound changes. Space stops behaving like a landscape and starts behaving like time. Insects that enter this world do not simply hide from the sun. Over generations, they are remade by absence itself. Legs lengthen, wings disappear, eyes shrink, then vanish. Bodies turn pale, delicate, improbable, as if designed by a place that never expects to be seen. Today, we're diving into why cave insects get stranger the darker you go down. And the deeper we go, the less these animals resemble the insects we know from fields, forests, and summer light. What looks bizarre to us is often a precise answer to an ancient problem: how to find food, mates, and meaning in a world with no sunrise at all. Caves are not one environment, but a gradient. The entrance zone still belongs partly to the surface, fed by drifting leaves, changing weather, and green life. The Twilight Zone softens those links. Then comes the dark zone, where there is no plant growth, little temperature change, and no visual horizon. This is where the strangest insects tend to appear, because this is where ordinary insect biology begins to fail. Vision becomes less useful. Pigment no longer shields a body from sun that never arrives. Fast, wasteful metabolisms become dangerous in a place where food can disappear for weeks or months. The deeper the darkness, the more severe the filter. Trogloxenes, like many cave crickets, may use caves but still depend on the surface. Troglophiles can live in both worlds. Troglobites are the true specialists, shaped so completely by cave life that they cannot return. When people say cave insects look alien, what they are really seeing is selection operating along that descending gradient, where every step away from light changes which traits still matter, and which traits become expensive relics. Science first recognized this transformation in a small beetle from Slovenia. In 1831, in Postojna Cave, a local guide and lamplighter named Luka Čech found a tiny insect in the underground dark, a place that naturalists of the time did not yet take seriously as animal habitat. The beetle, later described as Leptodirus hochenwartii, was only about 7 millimeters long, yet its body carried a revelation. It was pale, eyeless, narrow-necked. Its form was already clearly specialized for subterranean life. In the years that followed, that one discovery helped turn caves from geological curiosities into biological frontiers. Naturalists returned and found more cave beetles, spiders, crustaceans, millipedes, and other life forms that seemed to obey a different architectural logic from the surface world. Postojna became, in effect, a birthplace of biospeleology. The importance of Leptodirus is not just historical. It marks the moment when biologists realized that darkness is not empty. It is evolutionary space. And once an insect lineage crosses far enough into it, the result is not merely a cave version of a surface animal, but something re-engineered by isolation, scarcity, and perpetual night. To understand why deeper cave insects become stranger, it helps to begin with those that are not yet fully committed. Cave crickets are among the best examples. They are often seen in twilight or near cave mouths, and in many systems they remain tied to the outside world. That dependence makes them look less extreme than the blind beetles deeper in, but ecologically they are among the most important animals underground. In central Texas, cave crickets of the genus Pseudophilus leave caves after sunset, forage outside, then return carrying the surface back in their bodies and droppings. In nutrient-poor caves, this makes them keystone species. Their movements feed invertebrate communities and support predators that specialize even on their eggs. They are not strange because they are primitive. They are strange because they occupy a hinge between worlds. The cave keeps them cool and moist by day. The surface feeds them by night. Here the darkness has not yet erased the outside, only rerouted it. Deeper down, that bridge narrows or vanishes, and insects can no longer rely on nightly rescue missions from the world above. Then selection grows harsher, and the body begins to change more radically. Even the behavior of those crickets reveals how precise cave life must be. Their emergence is influenced by humidity, cloud cover, and temperature, with temperature exerting the strongest effect. Too cold, and activity drops. Too hot, and activity drops again. More cloud cover and higher humidity tend to favor exit, while bright moonlight suppresses surface movement. In other words, these insects do not simply rush out into the night. They negotiate risk minute by minute. Dry air threatens water balance. Bright light exposes them. Poor conditions can turn a foraging trip into death. This is one reason cave adaptation often proceeds towards stillness, conservation, and sensory caution, rather than speed or flamboyance. A cave rewards precision. The deeper the animal leaves, the more its biology must become economical in every sense. Economical with water, economical with energy, economical with motion. The strange body plans of deeper cave insects are built on this same principle. They are not extravagances. They are accounting systems written in flesh. For more than a century, biologists have argued over what exactly darkness does to an animal. Early thinkers invoked use and disuse, imagining that eyes simply faded when no longer needed. Later researchers proposed that some losses might spread through neutral mutations, especially if maintaining those traits no longer mattered. Modern work points to a more complicated picture. In caves, the convergent pressures are clear no light, often limited food, and a physically constrained habitat. These can favor reduced eyes and pigment, but also constructive changes such as longer appendages, altered sensory systems, and shifts in development and behavior. At the same time, not every cave trait can be assumed to be an adaptation with a single clean explanation. Reviews of subterranean evolution caution that cave environments are more diverse than the stereotype suggests. Some are richer in food than expected. Some traits reflect shared ancestry or developmental side effects. The cave is not a machine producing one standard body. It is a set of pressures interacting with chance, lineage, and time. Still, across unrelated insects, one pattern emerges again and again. As light disappears and external inputs diminish, anatomy is rebalanced away from display and toward detection. That rebalancing becomes almost theatrical in cave beetles. A study of Chinese cave-dwelling Treshine ground beetles shows a progression from relatively stout, eyeless forms to increasingly specialized Aphanopsian bodies, with extreme elongation of the trunk and appendages. These are not random distortions. The more specialized beetles tend to occupy deeper, darker microhabitats. The most elongated species wander on cave walls and ceilings in complete darkness, while less modified species stay lower, moving along rock walls or under stones and damp wood. As specialization increases, bodies grow slimmer, appendages longer, and form itself appears to stretch out into the empty space of the cave. The head and thorax change shape. Elytra become more slender. Surface-dwelling robustness gives way to a body built less for defense and more for reaching, probing, and navigating. In effect, the beetle becomes a moving instrument. When food is scarce and space is complex, a long body can explore more of the world without committing the entire animal. The deeper cave insect looks stranger because the geometry of its environment has become part of its anatomy. This is why many cave insects seem to be all feeler and limb, as if their bodies are dissolving into sensors. But even here the story is subtler than old textbook shorthand. Cave life does not always mean simply packing more sensory structures onto the antennae. Recent work on cave-dwelling beetles suggests the sensory transformation is more nuanced, challenging the assumption that blindness is straightforwardly compensated by a crude increase in antennal sensilla density. What matters is not just having more receptors, but changing how the body samples darkness at all. Longer appendages extend the zone of contact. Slower, careful movement reduces error. Humidity, airflow, vibration, texture, and chemical traces become part of an expanded map. A cave insect is not blind in the human sense. It lives in a world where touch and chemistry have become the dominant forms of distance. The deeper it lives, the more fully its body is reorganized around that invisible landscape. To us, such insects can appear skeletal or unfinished. To the cave, they are exquisitely equipped. Nowhere is the power of rapid subterranean redesign clearer than in Hawaiian lava tubes. These caves are geologically young, yet they shelter communities of highly specialized arthropods. Here, roots from surface plants, especially Ohia, penetrate the cave ceilings and become lifelines, carrying sunlight underground in liquid form. Around these roots gather some of the most remarkable cave insects known. Eyeless, pigmentless plant-hopper nymphs feed on sap. Cave crickets hop through passages feeding on roots and other animals. Moths in the genus Schrankia spend their lives on root systems, their cocoons hanging among wet strands like torn fibers. Predators patrol above them. In these tubes, darkness does not sever the connection to the surface, it narrows it to a few dangling threads. That ecological bottleneck helps explain why the insects become so specialized. Their world is not just dark, it is vertically tethered, patchy and intimate. A root is not scenery. It is food, shelter, hunting ground, nursery and corridor. When an insect lineage becomes trapped inside such a system, evolution no longer shapes a generalist. It shapes a root world animal. The Hawaiian cave planthoppers go further, because they show that cave strangeness does not always require vast spans of time. Research on the Oliaros polyphemus complex found that these insects, living in extremely similar lava tube environments on Hawaii Island, display strong differences in behavior and body form, despite the youth of their habitats. The system has become a model for rapid speciation by stochastic events and founder effects. Phenotypic variability within populations appears to decrease with increasing cave age, suggesting that small founding populations can diversify quickly and then stabilize. In plain terms, a few insects may enter a cave, become isolated, and begin to drift and adapt with startling speed. Darkness does not merely preserve relics, it can generate novelty. And because these cave populations are natural replicates, they show something profound. Similar subterranean conditions do not always produce identical outcomes. The cave channels evolution, but it does not script every line. That is part of why insects seem to get stranger deeper down. The deeper environment strips away many options, and what remains is a narrow corridor where adaptation and chance can leave unusually visible signatures. In Hawaii, even closely related forms can reveal the gradient of darkness, almost like frames in an unfolding experiment. The cave moth Schrankia hawaiii is especially telling. According to field observations from lava tubes, the dark zone morph is lighter in color, has reduced eyes, and is typically flightless, While the Twilight Zone morph looks much more like other moths in the genus and retains flight, here the cave is not just selecting between species, it is selecting between versions of a life. Flight, so useful in open air, becomes less advantageous in tight, dark passages where movement is constrained and energy is precious. Eyes diminish because the dark zone does not reward their maintenance. Color fades because signal and camouflage collapse where no sunlight enters. The insect becomes stranger not by acquiring extravagance, but by abandoning the assumptions of the surface one trait at a time. It is evolution by subtraction, followed by reallocation. The deeper morph is not less complete. It is more specifically written by its habitat. And yet, the deepest lesson of cave insects is that there is no single recipe for becoming a creature of darkness. Some cave systems depend on guano, flood debris, or wandering crickets. Hawaiian lava tubes may depend on roots. Some subterranean habitats are more food-rich than once believed. Some lineages elongate dramatically, others remain compact. Some lose eyes early, others retain reduced visual structures. The old idea of one universal cave form has been giving way to a more complex view, in which absence of light is only one axis among many, interacting with habitat size, competition, ancestry, and ecological history. This is why cave insects get stranger the darker you go down, but not always in the same way. Depth intensifies the demands of cave life, yet what each lineage does with those demands depends on what it already is, what resources remain available, and what accidents occurred when the first colonists crossed the threshold. Darkness is powerful, but darkness works with materials inherited from the light. So the deeper cave insect appears strange to us, for a simple reason: we are comparing it to a world it no longer inhabits. We expect insects to navigate by sight, to carry color, to fly, to live in a landscape of seasons and plants and horizons. Deep cave insects answer to another order entirely, where food is intermittent, space is close, light is absent, and survival depends on sensing what cannot be seen. Their bodies become longer, paler, slower, more delicate, more exact. But even after 2 centuries of cave biology, they remain unsettling not only because of how much we understand, but because of how much we do not. We still do not fully know which traits are adaptive, which are byproducts, how often similar forms arose independently, or how many subterranean lineages remain undiscovered in cracks too narrow for us to enter. In the end, the dark does not merely hide these insects from view. It hides from us the full logic of evolution itself, still working in silence beneath our feet.